Hello, Internet, and welcome once again to the Free-to-Play cast brought to you by MMOBomb.com, your home for all things free-to-play related. I'm your host, Mike Byrne, aka magicman. We've got rapid-fire news, we've got weird news, and we've got some bombs. We've got your feedback from last week's show, and so much more. And even before the show, we're placing bets on all kinds of bookies. And and if you didn't see the NBA game from EA, that trailer, I'm gonna mention it at some point in this show, I'm sure. Jason already rolling his eyes at that one. Talk about tone deaf. So let's introduce the hosts. Mr. Jason Winter, how are you, sir?
Yeah, just like a loot box, you can make no money by watching our podcast. We are definitely not gambling.
We are not gambling. You cannot bet on it. But what you can bet on, if you have a bookie that's giving you odds, is whether or not Ms. Quinlan Bowers will stay connected this week. How are you, Q?
Oh, we should. There should be someone doing odds for that. And I need a haircut really, really bad. Look at this.
All right. So, yeah, did anybody else see that? EA's NBA?
Oh, yeah.
NBA, what is it? The
NBA
20?
my team, that's what it's called.
I'm supposed to pay attention to something EA Sports does?
It was like the most tone deaf, or if they did it on purpose, the biggest FU to like anybody that's a legislative body that's investigating this stuff, or, you know, parents or the ESRB or the ESA or anything. It was like a 2-minute, you know, advertisement for the new NBA game that like almost strictly focused on the loot mechanics of it, opening packs. They even had slot machines.
Slot machines, like a Wheel of Fortune
a Wheel of Fortune spinny thing.
At least they know who they are.
Until they get legislated out of existence, yes.
Yeah, and like if everybody that watches this knows that I do enjoy a good Jim Sterling video from time to time. So obviously he did like 8 or 9 minutes on this one, and he was just like, I hope that when this stuff actually starts to be legislated, that they play this trailer at the hearings. Because it's basically just like, yeah, oh yeah, it's totally a slot machine. It's totally a roulette wheel. It's totally a pachinko machine. But it's not gambling. It's not gambling. And if you think I'm being facetious when I say those particular gambling items, go watch. It is the biggest middle finger ever.
If it's in the game, it's in the game.
It's in the game.
If it's in the casino, it's in the game.
What, Q?
How did I miss this? Like, how did this not hit my Twitter at any point?
I don't know.
I think it's because everybody on my Twitter was so busy either being really excited or really upset over CD Projekt Red taking the male-female thing out of Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
You know, during the day,
that was my feed.
During the day, Mike and I go around to various websites and look up video game stuff. So you might want to try doing that. You'll learn.
I'm not going to look up shit related to EA Sports. I'm sorry.
All right, let's slide over and get started with the free-to-play news. First up, we're going to do a rapid-fire round. We got a bunch of smaller stuff, some of it pretty interesting. Then we're going to hit some weird news on the rapid-fire. And by weird, I mean some games that, why is this even here? And some games that aren't going to be here, and we'll take a look at why. And then we'll polish it all off with just a little smidge of news for those of you that are waiting for Ascent Infinite Realm. I know, Q, both you and I are on that train with Jason, just kind of spectating, not really hyped one way or the other. He's on the spectator train, not the hype train.
I'm just watching the train. I'm on the hill looking at the train going by.
Exactly. So let's start with a game that, Jason, actually used to be pretty dear to your heart. You indulged in the old PlanetSide 2 for a while, particularly at launch.
A bit.
And we're quite fond of it. And this is kind of bad news, I guess, but it's small bad news. PlanetSide 2 will be merging its Australian server into its Japanese server. And if you want to, they'll give you a free transfer from the Australian server to the US West server instead. I'm kind of not surprised about this one, Jason. I'll let you speak to it more since you were more involved with PlanetSide 2 than I've ever been. But the population in the Australian server has been falling for a while, falling faster than the other servers, which still have a reasonable amount of players on them. Kind of just makes sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, I found this one site that is basically like the Steam charts of PlanetSide servers. Again, I have no way of knowing how verified they are, but they seem to have pretty good data there. And yeah, it averaged, the Australian server, when it started out, averaged about 250 or so online at any one time, with a peak of around 700 or 800, which is kind of how PlanetSide works. PlanetSide 2 works. Like you You kind of have to play during peak hours a lot of the time. That's when there's the most people on. You get the best fights and whatnot. But by like early part of this year, like I said, it was averaging around 250 when it first came out. The peak was around 200 by around the start of this year, with an average in January. Guess how many average players were online during January, according to this site?
Go for it. What the
9.
hell is that? That is not what I selected.
What happened?
I'm so confused by what's going on the screen.
I know. I tried to.
I think you got my wall or
There we
something
go.
there.
There we go.
But yeah, the answer was 9. That's what the site says, how many average players were on in the Australian server in January. And it's only been averaging like 20s, 30s, 50 in 1 month. So yeah, it's understandable that they would shut that down or merge it into something else. Although some of the Australian players, some of the players I saw on forums were saying that, I guess earlier this year, they actually offered instead of trying to like make it better, they offered people a free transfer to, I think the US West server, I think to Connery. So a lot of them were complaining, well, you guys killed it because you didn't even try to make it better. But even at that point, it was already averaging like 50 people online at a time. So you can't really blame them, I think.
It is currently the only named server merger, so, I mean, it looks very, very regionally specific here. This isn't like hey, Rift, we're condensing all of our servers, or WildStar, we're doing this. This is very, very region-specific. It just doesn't make cost sense for us to run this here anymore, so play with Japan or play with US West. And that sucks for the Australian players, but from the looks of it, there aren't as many as... Here's the thing, though. With this type of game, I would think if you're an Australian player who's really pumped about the game and just the nature of the way PlanetSide 2 plays, you've got to maybe be sitting there going, oh, thank God, it's about time. Because it's one that has to have a bunch of people online for it to be an enjoyable game to play. That's the whole point of the game. Yes? No?
Yes. And if you look at the Japanese... If you look at the Japanese server, it's been peaking at around 1,000, averaging about 300. So it's still doing really well. Actually, it's been even growing a little bit since it launched, apparently, back in January. So it's doing real well. Let's see, Connery, that's the US West server. Yeah, it averages like 300-400 on at a time, peaks over 1,000. So yeah, that's like about 10 times as many players you have on the Australian server. So
yeah. So as bad news as server mergers usually are, I think this one makes sense and probably is a net good for the Australian players that are still there, provided that it doesn't come with performance issues now that you're relocating the server, X hundred miles away from where it originally was. That, of course, is always a concern, but we'll see. Let's stick with PlanetSide, and Q, I know this isn't free-to-play, but we're going to talk about it for a second because it's going to be free-to-play. I just don't see any way to be coy about this one. So yesterday, PlanetSide 2 Arena, the buy-to-play offshoot of PlanetSide 2, so PlanetSide Arena, was, their Twitter just kind of, boop, sent out a little teaser video. And it was like the first time we saw anything, Q, for like 6 months. Remember, this game was supposed to be released at the beginning of the year, into early access or beta or whatever they called it at the time. I think they called it early access. Then it was delayed until March. Then it was delayed again until summer. And at that point, they issued refunds for anybody who had bought the Founders Packs, which I don't know about you, Q. That flagged to me right away. If this comes back, I think it's going to come back free to play. I don't know if you felt any differently back then.
I mean, it does make sense, right? Although I guess I can kind of see doing the refund too if you just literally at that point have no idea when the game is coming out. Like, then you might as well just go ahead and refund everybody's money and try again later on when you actually do know something.
Kind of be like good customer service, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, but if you're sitting there going, although, I mean, right, we all did it back when we thought Kickstarter was actually great. We all, and there's still games from like, 6-7 years ago or whatever that we're sitting around having nothing. So, but yeah, I think if they had no idea when it was coming out, refunding it would totally make sense. Or even if it would be coming out, because that's another thing, right? If they don't know when, they probably don't know if.
Right, and that was kind of my thought back at the time was this may never see the light of day, and if it does, I think it's going to be free to play at this point. Because honestly, when this was announced, all of us were kind of like, why isn't this A, just a mode in PlanetSide 2? And B, if they wanted it standalone, why isn't it free to play? I mean, we just didn't feel like this game was going to lend, and maybe we'll be wrong, right? We haven't played it or anything like that. But this felt like it should have been in the free to play category. Now, Jason, that was yesterday, and the trailer that was revealed didn't give us anything. It was just like, the Twitter is alive is all it confirmed, and maybe
it's like Cyberpunk going beep.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It was kind of like, well, I mean, the only thing that really answers is that it's not dead. But just today we get some more PlanetSide Arena news in the form of a release timetable.
Yeah, so early access is going to be on September 19th, which is officially just a few days before the end of summer. So they're still going to hit that summer window. Just barely.
Just barely.
And
now
it is not... Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So it's not going to be free to play. Still not going to be free to play.
Yep.
Going to have I think it's $20 for the base price, and you get a deluxe pack for $40. And yeah, it's going to be... the initial launch and early access will feature the new squads mode, 12 soldiers per squad, and teams mode, 3 soldiers per team, in epic 300-player matches. Are they going to have 300 players online at any point?
Yeah, this is going to be a bit of a tough sell, I think. I mean, I think people are basic. If you're a PlanetSide fan, you might be interested in where are they going with my PlanetSide. You know, that type of perspective. What are they going to do with my PlanetSide here? But they're really, as somebody who doesn't really play a lot of PlanetSide or PlanetSide 2, never really got heavily invested in them. I played PS2 here and there. That was it. I couldn't care less about this. There is no way. There's nothing about the advertising or anything that makes me go, all right, I want to plunk down $20 and check that out. There's just nothing about this game that does it for me.
I did play PlanetSide 2, and I got out of it in part because of the whole Daybreak shenanigans, whatever they were doing, so I'm not going to touch their games again. But even if I was still in it, even if this was announced like 3 years ago, I don't think I'd be interested. I like how PlanetSide 2 plays with its, kind of infinite, persistent server, I guess I would say. And like I was talking before, it's going to be a question of whether you'll have 300 people online. Sure, you might. But if you have like 400 online, 300 are in a match, the other 100 are sitting there waiting for a match until 200 more people log in or whatever. So
yeah, I don't know. Q, how long before this goes free to play? Do you see it go, let's say it actually launches mid-September. We get the date that they gave us, which was what, the 19th?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say it actually comes out September 19th. Do we see it go free to play before the end of the year? That's like 3 months, over 3 months. You say yes. You're not even remotely hesitating.
Yeah, because I mean, again, what Jason was talking about, the massive amounts of people that are required for this, and just the queues that you have on obviously smaller matches in other games. I don't see them getting enough people if they keep it as a buy-to-play game to consistently have 300 people matches going. I just don't see it happening. But, I could be wrong, but I don't see that at all.
Q, I was halfway through the questions. She was like, yes.
Yes.
Jason, are you with Q? Does it go free to play as early as the end of the year?
I think they try to maintain the illusion of credibility at least through the end of the year.
So you're thinking
but not by much. I'm thinking January, February.
I was going to say a January, February, early March type thing. All right, fair enough. I give it this. I'm kind of with you, Jason. I give it that 6 month window. Yeah, that right after the holidays, before the end of months 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
But yeah, and for the same reasons, too. I just don't see a lot of interest in it. Granted, there are people that are interested. I'm not claiming it's total garbage. I have never played it. I don't know. There are some people that are certainly going to be interested in it and check it out. I don't think there's enough of those people, is my only point. Jason disagrees with me, thinking that people are even interested.
It's I try not
Jason, you won't even give me that there's one person out there that wants to play this game. You're like, nope,
I don't know if
nope.
There's just the one. Nobody else.
It's like this morning I saw, when I first learned about the new info, I saw it on Eurogamer. I was like, around 11 a.m. when I saw that news. I saw there's like 2 comments on it because the article just went up. I checked that same article just before we went live, like 4 hours later. Still just 2 comments. That's how much people are interested in it. I don't want to get too much into
That's double the one you will give me.
Still, yeah, those 2. Yeah, that's true.
So it's 2, and they can play with each other.
There you go.
and wait for 298 more people if they want to do the 300-person thing.
Right,
Granted,
right.
that's only one mode. We know. We're just being a little facetious, having some fun with that one. Moving on back to the free-to-play world. Riot Games did settle its class action discrimination lawsuit. Some of you might remember a little while ago on the cast, I think it was like a month or 2 ago, we were talking about a number of suits that were being leveled against Riot Games for allegations of sexual harassment, discrimination, particularly against females, and a number of different allegations against the company and individuals within the company. There was also big news that people were pissed because a lot of Riot's internal dealings involved forced arbitration instead of allowing lawsuits to go forward in court. Now, we do have news that the class action lawsuit was settled, and that's about it. Typically, we're not going to get the details of a settlement. In most cases, those types of things aren't made public. But Rioters Against Forced Arbitration said too long didn't read. Class action lawsuit against Riot has been settled. Other suits that did go to arbitration are still pending. We believe this is a huge victory for women in games. Full text of statement from the walkout organizers here. And in general, I will paraphrase that they were very happy by the result of this settlement. They felt that it was a great leap forward in not only changing the way things may be done in the future at Riot, but for its potential impact in the industry as a whole. Jason, your overall thoughts here? I think Riot... Whether you believe they were guilty of the allegations, whether you believe they were not, I think it was definitely in Riot's best interest to settle this one out of court. Just my own personal gut reaction to some of the reporting we saw on other sites.
Yeah, I mean, you can decide for yourself how much of what was alleged went on. Probably at least something, even if you don't believe in the whole thing. And then there's probably things that have happened that haven't been publicly disclosed. So good for them, though, to probably try to keep as much as they can under wraps and to deal with this in a kind of quiet manner that, quite frankly, is not getting the same level of news coverage that the initial stuff got. So that's probably how they want to keep it.
Q, thoughts? I mean, do these changes stick is where I kind of want your opinion. We've seen Riot do some things, right? Like they did some, suspension without pay of one of their execs for a brief period of time. They brought in a chief diversity officer. They've settled this out of court under closed circumstances as far as what the settlement will be. Does this lead to change at Riot? Again, set aside whether or not the allegations happened, to the extent that they happened, what's true, what isn't. Just set that aside. I refuse to believe that something nefarious wasn't going on. There was some shady shit here and there. We can talk about the extent of it until we're all blue in the face, and we'll probably disagree here and there. Set it all aside. Does this lead to a culture change in Riot as a whole? These cumulative actions all boiling in this same direction?
Well, I mean, based on what has been reported regarding this and everything, most of the issue, it was a trickle down of issues, right? Starting right at the very top, and the behavior of the actual execs and stuff themselves. And it's one of those things, right? It's not just, oh, well, now we have all these rules in place, yada, yada, yada. When you're talking about like the top tier people, it literally requires a change in them as individuals rather than just, oh, now we've got rules, it's fine, we're good. So I honestly don't know, because it's not like they've come in and, just gotten rid of all of those people who were behaving poor, reportedly behaving poorly and all of that. It's not like those people are gone. And I mean, so are they just like, oh, now we've got rules that we have to abide by so that we don't get into trouble. So I guess I'm, not going to go by and slap somebody on their crotch anymore, whatever it is. Like That's a really hard call to determine if it's actually going to mean anything in the long run.
Keep in mind, the original Kotaku piece was like a year ago now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is in my brain. I don't know why this all seemed like on a much shorter timeline. The original Kotaku piece, yeah, was like a year ago. Wow, I'm kind of stunned that it is that. Jason, you took so much flack for that damn article, by the way, and I don't even understand why. Like, I go back and I'm looking at the original Kotaku article. Kotaku details this, or our article referencing Kotaku's. Kotaku details this culture of sexism at Riot Games, and it was back in August of last year. Okay, you report on the piece, spoke to 28 people. The article gives multiple examples, defined by one person as working in a giant fraternity, according to multiple sources. Blah, blah, blah. Like, this is 100. A lot of the articles dedicated to the typical, though unfortunate, kind of sexism you hear about a lot of companies, women being passed over for promotions. And then, like, that's it. It was literally a news article. And I'm looking at the comments and, like, man, Jason, you took a lot of shit, man.
Because it was mentioned at all. A lot of people just don't want to hear that at all.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
that's exactly it.
That's 100% it.
And with that, Jason loses all credibility for what? He just reported on the news. Whatever.
I'm not sure why we're even worrying about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Those comments.
I'm sorry. I got sidetracked. I had to go back because I was clicking the articles while you were talking to see what I wanted to talk about next as part of that the Riot topic. And I'm reading through the comments to see if there's any that, I want to throw in the show while Q, you were talking. I'm reading the comments and I'm like, wait, what's going on? Jason's dismissing this. And I'm like, wait a minute, this was a news piece. This was not an editorial, right? And I scroll up to reread the whole piece again real quick. And I'm like, what is going on, maniacs? Oh, of course, 99% of our site's content is sponsored articles. According to the same commenter that
I get paid by Riot every day.
Yeah.
But as a general rule,
write a crappy article about them. Yes.
As a general rule, we don't editorialize on stuff like this because we kind of hate writing about it to begin with.
Yeah. Yep. And I wish 99% of our content was sponsored, because that means 99% of every post we put up would be money in the bank. We don't do sponsored content. I write emails every day declining sponsored content. Thank you, though. All right, moving on. I love the way this panned out. So last week we talked about Fortnite and Apex Legends maybe having a bad week or two and some things. And we also kind of laughed at Fortnite, the team at Epic Games, trotting out Jason bar graphs and everything to defend the mech in-game, and that it didn't need to be nerfed, and it wasn't going to be nerfed, and here's the reason why. It's actually, low kill counts when it's looked at the overall impact on a match and everything. And how things change in a week, because the mech's getting his ass nerfed, isn't he?
Yep, pretty much. They gave up. They just said, no, it's not getting nerfed. It's having balance adjustments. But yeah, a lot of it is just like numerical stuff, decreases in rate of rocket fire and spawn rate, increase in dash cooldown, and it doesn't collect materials when it stomps structures, because apparently that was another thing. It's like, well, if you want to have some balance to it, make you at least be vulnerable if you want to go and collect materials. Of course, you don't have to do that. You just stay in the mech all game long. Granted, why do you need to build stuff when you're inside the mech? So, whatever.
Q, are you surprised here?
Actually, I was a tiny bit shocked, but I mean, not greatly. It was just one of those, oh, okay, for a brief moment. It was like, really? And then, oh, well, yeah, I guess. Because, I mean, if people complain long enough, you're just going to cave. It's like the dad, can we have a pool? Dad, can we have a pool? Dad, can we have a pool? You go for so long, and then finally you just give in.
I was a little bit surprised, too, and only because of, the PowerPoint that they unleashed on the world like a week ago, that they were like, we're not changing it. Here's all the stats, why we're not changing it. And then 6 days later, fuck it, we're changing it. Sick of seeing this on the forums.
I just saw something before we went live about how they're changing some other thing with building requirements or something. Some other thing that people were complaining about. Let me see if I can find it. Epic reverts Fortnite turbo building changes after players push back.
Hey, you know what though? You make bajillions of dollars. You kind of gotta tread some lines. You don't want to do anything that's gonna hurt that cash cow too much, particularly when you're aggressively going at after Steam the way that they are with the Epic games. You really got to be careful and make sure the money's all in the right place and steady. So, not saying I like the changes or not. My daughter hated the mech, so I'm sure she'll be thrilled that this is happening. Finally, before we go on to a couple weird little rapid-fire pieces, Star Wars The Old Republic has backed up its Onslaught expansion. That was supposed to be... When was that? It was supposed to be put into the testing phase in just a couple of weeks. Now the expansion is not even going to be released until October 22nd. And when you think about Star Wars expansions, Q, that's a pretty substantial delay. We kind of laughed at one game. I forget which one it was. Maybe one of you two can remind me. Oh, it was Destiny. Destiny 2 backing up their expansion and their free-to-play launch. And when you saw headlines, it made it look like it was a month or so. Then when you looked at it, it was really 2 weeks. It was from September 18th to October 3rd, something like that. This is a pretty substantial delay. This is a full 2 month. Gathering feedback from players since last month or early June. Have already made some changes, and they plan to roll those out for testing in the near future. And as a result, the expansion now going to be released on October 22nd. Now, I do have to be careful because I think I misread this. When was the original launch day supposed to be? Do we know that?
Yeah, I thought we knew the date.
Q, do we know the original date?
I don't remember.
Hold
There's
on,
so many dates for things.
I mean, it was already in testing a little bit since June, so it couldn't have been that far off.
Maybe, well, we wrote about...
It says September. Yeah, the initial article says September. Maybe that's all they had, was they didn't have a date. Yeah, I think it was just September. That's all they had.
Yeah, so this is going to launch.
Yeah.
Screenshots. Yeah.
So, I mean, it could have been the end of September.
Onslaught launch in September. Yeah. So, yep. I don't think it's the end of September that then they would say, oh, we're going to back it up to October. So this is about, let's say it's a month. Without any official days, we'll say it's a 1 month launch. They were going to launch on September 20th. Now they're going to launch on October 22nd. I still think that is a pretty big deal given the size of SWTOR expansions and how long this has already been in testing. That's not a good look, I don't think, Jason.
To me, though, I don't mind it that much because it seems like the sort of thing where, and especially because, BioWare got some of this crap for what happened with Anthem. It's maybe that's sort of thing where they could have crunched and worked in 80-hour weeks to get it out, but they know they're okay with it, so they can go ahead and push it back a little while. Maybe it's not such a bad thing after all. I think it's a few years ago, maybe they would have done it differently, but I think maybe they're a little more cognizant of that sort of thing now.
Oh, all right, little positivity from Jason Winter.
It won't last.
Do we need to mark the calendar for that?
All right, let me wish I could still do annotations, right? Put a little YouTube flag warning.
Do I get a gold star on the
Jason
calendar?
about to be positive.
Positive.
All right, so he takes the positive side. I take that it's a little more negative for a game as aged as Star Wars The Old Republic. Where do you sit, Q? Does the delay matter as far as who's going to be playing? Or is this, if you're playing Star Wars, you're playing Star Wars and you'll play it in October just as much as you would in September?
Okay, yes. If you're playing Star Wars, you're just going to play Star Wars. If this is a game that you have stuck with for this long, it's not going to be you'll be a little bit sad you haven't got that new content right away. But I mean, I would much rather wait and get good content. And based on what they were saying, right? It's based on this delay is based on player feedback. So at least they're trying to make it good instead of just rolling out whatever crap they've managed to actually complete and be done with it.
Fair enough. Let's slide over and talk about some weird rapid fire news. First up, we got
I don't know why this is weird.
Because it's awful. Rogue Heist is now in early access on Steam. If you're wondering what that is, it's a 6v6 multiplayer game that basically takes two teams and you're kind of like doing the same heist. You got to go try to steal an item or go do this. You could have a sniper providing you cover. And all of this sounds really cool, right? And it does, I admit. I enjoy Payday 2 and playing Payday 2 with friends, doing the heist modes on there. Just as much as anybody else. But I gotta say, I'm not surprised with the Steam reviews sitting right now at the mostly negative spot 1 week after its release day with 313 early access reviews. We're not talking about 5 or 6. And not only does it not play well, I did download this to check it out, there's just nobody on it. Nobody, Jason. Nobody.
Is there really nobody? Let me just go over to Steam charts real quick here and see what they say. They say that there are currently 12 players online. So there are 10 playing an hour ago.
Right.
22 for the peak. Yeah.
It is 6v6.
So right now they have exactly enough.
Exactly.
PlanetSide Arena might manage more players than that.
That is exactly one match. And I know, Q, the weird thing is, like, you're like, why is this on here? Because when you look at the trailer, like, it may not be your cup of tea or whatever, but the trailer's nicely put together. All right, fine, I get what's going on. If you're into this kind of game, go check it out. Why is it weird? Because it's just awful. And there's already just Payday 2 is like $1 when it's on sale. And it goes on sale like all the time. Buy that. I can't really endorse this one. And at the point right now, it's not even worth a first look. Maybe when it gets out of early access and they add some more features, some more maps and stuff, because the heist mode of games is fun, so maybe they can save this. But not right now.
But you gotta love the mature content warning. It says here, and I quote, "The game generally involves shooting a mechanism to get score to win the game.
Yes.
So each shooting on the opponent's spawn a blood splatter FX."
Yeah, that is the point of the game.
That's mature because if you're like under a certain age, you can't even begin to understand what they're trying to say.
Speaking of bizarre, we've got tactical first-person shooter Dissolution.
Words are hard.
Dissolution. Oh my God.
Dissolution.
Thank you. Launched on Steam, I believe it was last week. It's supposed to be a sci-fi kind of shooter game, and yeah, this is really, really early access. This is another one, Jason, that I downloaded today to play to see if it's worth, do we wait? Because with the early access, first looks are, dicey. We want anything that's in early access. Jason and I tend to get in, play a little bit, make a call on do we do a first look now or do we wait a little bit, maybe to an alpha or to a beta. This one, we are definitely taking a hard pass on first look wise until it gets to a later state. There's only like 3 levels on there, 2 PvE and 1 PvP. It's the one that I created a room real quick because nobody was on the US East server. Nobody when I got on. So I created a room and jumped in by myself. It's meant to have a minimum of 4 people in the room. And it was a zombie horde wave thing. I literally did not move. I immediately, while the counter was going down, like the first wave of zombies in 30 seconds. So I spent that 30 seconds just kind of running around, checking out the map, getting familiar with the controls, because there's 0 tutorial or anything right now. Early access, fine, whatever. And then I went back to the room that I spawned in, and I stood there. And the zombies came shuffling in through 3 different entrances. And I just shot everyone in the head as they walked in. And stood there. Wave 2, same thing. Wave 3, same thing. Then you IM'd me about something, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go look at that. Exit. I left. So, not worth it yet, and I don't know if it will be. Why is it weird? Besides it just being a shitty shooter, at least right now, it's kind of shitty for me. This one's getting mixed reviews, so there are people that dig what they're doing. And maybe, I just jumped in, picked a mode, and started checking things out. Maybe I didn't give it a fair shot. Fine, I'll give it that. We will check this out. It's just way too early for a first look. There's not enough there, and I don't want to publish a first look that just bashes the shit out of what might be a decent game later. So we'll hold on that. But what's weird, Jason, is how this one's doing loot. We see the blockchain and cryptocurrency again.
Yeah. Eventually, someday, because I keep laughing at stuff like, yeah, whatever blockchain, you're going to spend $100 on loot boxes, and when the game shuts down, you'll be able to get like 10 cents back for it. Eventually, someday, it's going to work. It might not be for another 30 years or so, and then I'll look stupid. But until then, I don't get it. I don't get the point. Not only that, but the whole loot box or gambling thing that they talk about is, well, you can't make money off it and you get nothing in. Well, blockchain kind of gets around that, so how's that going to work?
Well, not really. I mean, if you can exchange it out for cash, yeah, but that's not what most of them are doing with this particular type of blockchain setup. I do like inherently, Q, the idea of if Q plays game A and I play game B, and I find something while playing game A for a little bit that Q you want, I do like the concept of me being able to give you that item for game A that you play more than I do in exchange for an item in game B that you happen to have farmed up. I do like that in concept. To Jason, your point, when a game shuts down, what do you do if you have the assets for some of the items you've found? Maybe you can get somebody to give you a couple cents for them. Maybe they're totally worthless, whatever. But I really do like the concept of being able to trade items with Q or with Jason from other games for things that work and help me in my game of choice. Q, does that even remotely appeal to you, or you just screw it? It's too complicated. Don't need to worry about it.
No, I can't see why it wouldn't appeal. It's just, I don't necessarily see it. Like it's one of those things that does take a lot of implementation and everything, right? And getting that whole thing just right. But being able to do that kind of thing, just shuffle stuff between games and stuff like that, I have no problem with the concept.
It's just never going to happen until the big boys get on board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
which they don't even do within their own games. Like, could Blizzard make something where, if I get a card in Hearthstone and I don't like it, and I want to get a thing in Heroes of the Storm, I get that for it. Maybe then you could, but
yeah.
Could you imagine being a Diablo player and just selling things to people in the other Blizzard games all the time?
Yeah, exactly. And they're not going to do that because they'd rather you buy the new loot boxes in their individual games or whatever. So
I do want to close this topic with this. I did personally sound negative about the game, and I am kind of negative on it right now in its early access state. I think it's far too early for it to be in early access. But don't let that dissuade you from maybe looking at this one a little later. I think it felt smooth. It played well. It wasn't a ton of fun yet, but I think they're just testing out some core concepts and maybe went into early access a little too early. So if it interests you, I would encourage you to check it out. It is one we'll be keeping an eye on as they get further in development so that we can actually start seeing what that blockchain and cryptocurrency looting looks like, particularly in the PvP space. That's where I think it's going to be the most interesting. And the devs do seem pretty responsive on Steam. It's just they're inviting all the negative feedback right now by putting an early access out there with 3 little levels that's basically a proof of concept, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, they say they're working on just the FPS combat right now, but later stages are going to include, a survival, open world MMO type stuff with freedom and personal choice, purchase properties, vehicle, weapons, so forth. So it looks like they have a lot planned, but like you said, right now they're just testing out the basic mechanics of it.
Yep, it got a quick uninstall, but it'll definitely be on my radar, and we will re-examine it for a first look a little later in its development life. Finally, Nexon canceling. I know this is kind of a rumor coming from MMO culture, but MMO culture usually pretty good about this stuff. Also was reported on by Massively OP too. Peria Chronicles, if you don't remember that, us talking about that game through Nexon over in Korea, it's not only is it not gonna come west, but it's shutting down, isn't it, Q?
The funny thing about this particular game is that you gave this to me to write about, and I'm like, wait, have we have we even covered this before? And I go back and we've never talked about this game before, and I was just like, oh, okay. But yes, it's reportedly shutting down. It's one of those situations where it was announced on Korean site and translated and put on Reddit and stuff like that. So at this point, there's no official English announcement on it, but I don't see why there necessarily would be. So
Yeah, we don't know if it's final. It probably is. They spent a reported $8 million on the project, and Jason kind of walk away just saying that it did not satisfy the user in Korea beta testing. Is that Nexon speak for we couldn't find the fun?
Just thinking of that exact thing. I was exactly thinking of that. But yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, canceling a game that's in development isn't such a big deal. But when you look at everything else Nexon's kind of been going through over the last year, including today's news,
yeah, go
you
ahead,
just wonder where they're at
share
right
that.
now. Yeah, because apparently a couple of their top executives are also going to step down. That's another rumor coming to us through MMO culture. So, I mean, you got the sale that didn't happen earlier this year. You've got them shuttering down some offices. You got Period Chronicles going away, and now you got some of their top people leaving. I mean, they did buy Patrick Soderlund's Embark Studios, so hell, maybe he's gonna be the next CEO at this point. I don't know. I mean, move to Korea and everything. He's the top dog now, practically. I don't know.
The top dog. Oh well. So long to Peria Chronicles. Q, before we move over to the bombs, we're gonna have little pets and mechanical automatons in Ascent Infinite Realm. We still don't know if it's gonna be free to play, but we're gonna have them.
And I mean, just the picture that was chosen here. The
I chose that one specifically. Like there were 5, 6 pictures, and that was the one I wanted.
Steampunk Kitty, yes.
Steampunk Kitty, metallic top hat and a top. It's like a double bow tie. I'm just noticing now.
It is. There's like a small one and then a big one.
Yeah.
Excellent.
He's got the gentlemanly mustache and everything.
Is that a monocle too?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Hey, as somebody who has almost 300 minions in Final Fantasy XIV, I am all about it. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to get my hand on this game. I know I'm going to be disappointed, but I still can't wait to get my hands on this game.
So everybody's just so pessimistic about everything. Just be excited for shit.
No,
I am.
It's okay. It's okay to be excited. It is.
It's not. It's not. It'll just come up. See, now we're going back to regular Jason. Take my gold star off.
Let's slide over to the weekly bombs. Q, you're up.
This is a weird one. I'm actually going to give a bomb to Amazon for having a daily deal that I really, really needed on the exact day that I needed it.
Wow. That never happens.
I got paid this morning, and I'm like, okay, I've had this hard drive, like an 8 terabyte external hard drive sitting in my thing for a while, and I was like, I'm going to go back and look, because maybe I'm just going to go ahead and get the 10 anyway. And the 10 was like $50 freaking off, and I was like, hell yeah! I'm so excited!
Well, good for you. Congrats. Jason.
I'm going to give an A-bomb to the ticket sales rollout for the Overwatch League. So they've been hyping this up for like a week. All the different team accounts, which I follow on my alternate account, they're all like, yeah, ticket sales coming out August 28th. Get ready. You're going to get to see us and everything. Like when it finally came out yesterday, half of them didn't work. Like you go to the site and you click on ticket sales. The link is to the same page you're already on. And then the rest of them that did work, the prices, I'll admit, are a little on the high side, but you're going to have to deal with that for being the thing is that it was only for 2 days, because all of them are going to be 2-day homestands, so they're all a 2-day thing. You can't go just one day. You got to buy the $80 tickets like Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, and that just stinks. And like $60 to $80 like the low end for the 2-day thing. You also have like the VIP tickets, which go for like $200 or something like that. And it's just a really big mess. Apparently, what I've read too is that they're selling tickets for the Boston for their team. They don't even have a venue yet. But they'll still take your money for the tickets, which will be somewhere.
Yeah, and we have no idea how many we can seat.
Exactly.
Not only where, but how many can we seat.
Yeah, but I will give a dub bomb to the new rule lock they've done in Overwatch League and competitive play. It's made matches a lot closer. I don't know if they're necessarily less toxic. They're just closer in general because you don't have teams, people taking 4 damage players and nobody picking a tank or whatever like that. So they've been a lot better games.
I'm going to give a dub bomb to Bungie and Destiny 2 for their cross-save and Steam prep features. If you didn't know, as we move towards free-to-play / expansion launch for Destiny 2 in just like a month, a little over a month here now, you will be able to cross-save. That is not cross-play. That is not cross-play. It just means that you can jump on the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, or the PC and access the same characters on your account on all 3. Not that you can play cross-servers. That's different. You're also going to need to prep your account if you play on PC for Steam, seeing as the game is on Battle.net right now. And if you are a Battle.net user, you will get it for free and on Steam, no problems. Both of those features you can set up now. You can prep your account for Steam, and you can go ahead and set up which account if you had multiples, like I did. I had a PlayStation account and a PC account. You can set up which one you want to be the cross-save account and on what platforms you want to be able to access it on. It took me like 5 minutes to do all of it. It was very easy. I mean, I guess the longest part would be forgetting your PSN password or your Xbox Live password. So dub bomb, nice system, easy instructions. Go ahead and get yourself set up now. You won't have to worry about it. From the viewers, Elusive X Treasure says, dub bomb to DDO's upcoming class. It's Dungeons & Dragons Online. The Alchemist. I've been wanting either Final Fantasy MMO to give me a chemist class since forever, but to no avail. I am super excited. I hope we see a chemist class in 14. I think they could do some nice things with that. Maybe mix in some healing. Who knows? Go ahead, Jason.
Hadrex Sky Shadow says, dub bomb to the soundtrack from Dune 2000. Somehow I found it inside one of my old game boxes, a CD with the soundtrack from Dune 2000, and decided to listen to it again. My God, I've completely forgotten how good the soundtrack is. Maybe it's just a nostalgia, but man, it feels good to listen to it again. I never experienced the I feel so old sensation until now. Not pleasant at all. Jason. Oh, hey, Drex, it gets worse.
Yeah, Jason, you just recently came across a box of software and stuff that you had in your house and found out you had some illegal soundtracks.
It wasn't that recent. It was like 2 or 3 months ago.
Go ahead, Q.
My totally legit Chrono Trigger from SM, whichever they are, the totally illegal bootleg people. Anyway.
Go ahead, Q.
Pull out Bornfly. To bomb to Magic Man and his thoughts on the KFC bowl. I'd run a train on the KFC bowl. LOL. Yes.
You gravy people are just.
Just stop. Just stop. You're not allowed to talk about food anymore.
Michael
he's anti-pickle too.
He is. Michael Coffey says, at Magic Mike, and you can use this for next week's show or reply, whatever you think helps the show best. How do you square, not the show, as I like it, and you got to work, so it's a win-win for us both. Thank you. But how do you square promoting free-to-play when it's the bane for 85% of the issues in gaming, greed, no morality, and business aside, set that aside, from loot boxes and microtransactions needed when a game is free now, being used in the buy-to-play full price market for almost every other game. I want to understand how someone like you with such a true love and passion for games and good games from back with Game Breaker and the rookie known as Mr. Happy, I'm going to tell him you said that, to doing sub MMOs yourself, is there anything good about free-to-play, or was it a blight on gaming? You would now, knowing what you know, go back in time and Terminator 2 style seek to eradicate it before it would plague 90% of all AAA Jim Sterling voice gaming. My thanks. Michael, good question. I would not, and we'll get all 3 answers here. I personally would not go back in time and eradicate free-to-play gaming. I think free-to-play gaming has a very, very good thing to offer the game space too. I know you set aside corporate greed and no morality, but I don't think that can be set aside because there are examples of some tremendously good free-to-play games, not just in monetization, but in accessibility, quality, genre, all of that. We talk about them all the time. The Warframes, the Path of Exiles, the League of Legends, the Dota 2s, the list, Guild Wars 2. Yeah, okay, fine. No, the expansions aren't free. Great. Okay, you know.
And those mount licenses.
Neither are EverQuests. There are just so many good examples of free-to-play gaming and even monetization done right, whether it's avoiding loot boxes entirely or doing it through some other methods, season passes, things like that. So no, here's how you asked me how do I square promoting free-to-play games? And I would take a little bit of umbrage with the way that is worded. I don't sit here and hawk free-to-play games as a whole to everybody. Our site specializes in free-to-play so that I get to come and tell you, this is a worthless piece of shit, avoid it. This is a decent game with decent monetization. This is a decent game with really shitty monetization, and I get to parse it out for you so that you don't have to. That's how I square it. I'll go play the garbage with Jason and Q so that you don't have to. Jason, your thoughts on the topic? Great question, though.
Yeah, I think it was really well worded the way he said it.
Absolutely.
The point is saying that free-to-play games have crappy monetization, but AAA is better as well. Did you see that My Team video? and then, granted, you could say that in a lot of cases, free-to-play kind of laid the groundwork for a lot of that sort of stuff.
And that's what I think Michael Coffey's implying in the question is that those monetization practices started here and now spread like a cancer, right, into regular AAA games. Except
what is the first microtransaction that everybody got up in arms about?
Oh, I have no idea.
Horse Armor and Oblivion.
Really?
Oblivion was a fully priced AAA game, and they started selling the Horse Armor, and that just exploded the internet. So, I mean, yeah, to some degree, free-to-play games made it a little more popular, a little more accessible, but it was kind of already there. So, and I'm sure there were like mounts for sale in the World of Warcraft shop long before free-to-play was popular and so forth. So yeah, it's kind of already been around.
Q, your thoughts?
I mean, I think one of the great things about free to play is it's kind of a great equalizer because there are people that just literally do not have the money to go spend to buy games. But what they do by being in these games is they give people that do have the money to spend in the game people to play with. And for, MMOs, that's kind of something you need, right? But as far as like companies finding ways to get money out of you, like even back in the cartridge days, they figured out, you know what, we can put a phone number in the back of this booklet and we can charge these fuckers every time they call us for a hint on how to get through this shit. So, I mean, it's always been there. They've always been looking for ways to make a little bit more extra money. And this is, without them even having to spend money on devs to continue developing that game, because once a game was out on cartridge, it was out and there was nothing else being done. So, I mean, it's just always been there. And, like I said, it's a great equalizer. And when you consider that the ratio of people without money to the ratio of people with money is incredibly imbalanced, at least free-to-play games gives people who otherwise wouldn't have a way to entertain themselves a way to do it.
Michael Coffey, thank you for the question. Tremendous question, and absolutely a great thing to discuss. I think free-to-play, just like everything else, there's the good and the bad, and sites like ours, since we're only going to focus on free-to-play, we'll go through and show you the good and the bad, and you'll let us know your feedback too. Last week's question of the week. Speaking of free-to-play and buy-to-play and let's fuck up both models, will you play... Will you play ArcAge Unchained? And if so, how much would you be willing to pay for that privilege? Elusive X Treasure says, for the question of the week, well, given the treatment Gamigo has given my poor Rift, I'm actively boycotting them. Even so, I wouldn't pay to restart ArcAge, especially without any of the shinies I had in it. Gamigo settles a lawsuit involving ArcAge, then desperately tries to make money off of it. Totally a coincidence, right? Elusive, I kind of with you. Jason, go ahead.
Hey, Rick Skyshout, this is question of the week. When it's going to be free, I'll try it, but until then, definitely no. I'd rather buy Platinum in Warframe, or who knows, maybe even a good game. Hell, I'd rather buy a bikini outfit in Black Desert. You know what? I'd rather just gift the game to some random asshole. Any of those choices have some kind of joy as a result.
Great reply. Sky Shadow is not going to go free. I guarantee it's not going to go free because they're going to run the free version simultaneously. If the paid version flops, I think you're going to see both of them go away. At least here in the West. At least here in the West. I don't know how it's still doing overseas. Go ahead, Q.
Furion. If it's $20 for the mid-tier package, then maybe. Otherwise, nope.
Yep, and that was kind of where I landed on the show last week, too. About the $20 range was the max I was really willing to go. Squeezy, question of the week. Why would I pay for a game I didn't like even when it was free to play? Also a fair point. Go ahead, Jason.
Metallica fan 1442 says, no, I won't play Arcade Unchained. I bought a Founders Pack first time around. Won't be doing the same again. Also, last time I bought a Founders Pack. You just said that.
That's the audience that I was talking about last week.
The question is, how much are you willing to pay? Okay, that was what he was talking about. But
that is the audience that I speculated last week that they need to get back with this or would like to get back with this, and I don't think the way they're going about it is going to attract that audience. Go ahead, Q.
Scott Frame. As I've been looking for a new MMO to play over the past few years, I've been debating on downloading and retrying Arcade for many months. Now that it is going in a new direction, I'm sure I will give it a try. $20 or less is what I think it would be, and I'd be okay with that. Did I mention I was a $150 founder?
So now we have the exact
opposite.
opposite.
You're willing to spend more money?
Yeah, but $20. Yeah, Scott's saying, hey, you know what? I paid $150. I am not back into it. I'll give them $20 to see if they do things right here. So kind of the exact opposite of Metallica fan. Jerma2, question of the week. The highest I'd be willing to pay for Arcade is $30, although I'd feel more comfortable paying something like $20, $25 as well. At the same time, knowing they'll do Founders Packs, which I don't know if we necessarily know that yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm worried that they may screw over certain things with different tiers, so I'm cautiously optimistic about giving Arcade another go. Also, wanted to toss in a quick response to people talking about how fantastic mobile games/ports don't work with a simple OSRS. I don't know what we're talking about there.
Old school RuneScape.
What's that?
Old school RuneScape.
Oh, wow, German2, good point. That is like ridiculously successful for old mobile games going to, or old MMOs going to mobile ports. That has done very well for Jagex. You are absolutely right. Go ahead, Jason.
Ryan Forecast, which if that's your real name, that's awesome. You should be a weatherman. It says, I hope Arcade does similar pricing to Black Desert Online. I think anything more than £10 for a starter pack would be pushing it, just because of the bad rep these games have in the Western market. I think if they keep it cheap and optimize it well, they might just get away with it. However, I could totally see them adding plenty of microtransactions under the radar, like a few months after release, just to avoid bad press. Oh, they won't avoid it. No, we'll get them. We'll tell them.
The pounds to dollars right now. That's about $12, by the way, for those of you in the United States. Ryan, I think that's about right. I don't think it'll be that low, and I think the only reason Black Desert is because of how long it's been out, and you can catch it on sale for like next to nothing when you're buying Payday 2 instead of Rogue Heist.
And it's not really under the radar either. They say there's going to be cosmetic item
and
monetization features, etc.
Season passes.
So.
Go ahead, Q.
One-Eyed Wanderer. I'll play the new Arcade due to it being the most MMORPG open world that isn't an action RPG with an MMO skin.
You got to give Arcade that. It had the potential to offer something that really wasn't available on the market and still really isn't to the extent that Arcade does it. Whether or not it does it well and whether or not you like it, totally different discussion.
But to be honest, if you want an MMO that isn't an action RPG, there's Final Fantasy XIV. I mean, that's pretty good too. So.
Yeah, but that's not as sandboxy and as Arcade is. I mean, it's very Final
but he's not saying that. He's just saying
Final
open world
Fantasy
without
is very
action,
theme park.
So.
Final Fantasy is very theme park, and I think that's more what One-Eyed Wonder was going.
Yeah,
for.
when I hear open world, I don't think theme park.
Right. I think One-Eyed was going more towards sandboxy. Mr. M, I play Arcade on legacy servers. This was the type of players I really wanted to hear from. I won't be playing Arcade Unchained because to me it looks like a money grab upfront fresh start server. That is not the audience you want pissed off at this. Jason, go ahead.
Blade Slasher. For the question of the week, that is a no. Why? It's simple. I don't trust Gamigo. Just look what they did to Rift and that whole saga of paying for dailies.
By the way, your Rift Season Pass 2 is now available, complete with 90 different dailies and weeklies and the ability to reset them.
90 different dailies, 50 different weeklies.
Oh, yeah. Let me not shortchange this son of a bitch.
I wrote it. It's just stuck in my head.
And for the mere price of nothing, you could re-roll one of your dailies. What does that mean, you ask, Jason? It means this. If you don't like the random boring-ass daily quest we gave you, you could click re-roll and get another one, guaranteed to still be just as equally boring and mind-numbing. We'll also let you do this with the weekly, once per week, too. And we're going to put the qualifier on that once per day and once per week is for free. We're not going to tell you, but we're going to imply with that sentence that we might give you the ability to buy more re-rolls. So if you hate dailies and loot boxes, let's make loot box dailies. Re-roll that son of a bitch. See if you get a good one. If not, 38 cents will get you another try. Oh my God, what are they doing?
Did you even breathe at all during that?
Question of the week this week. I want to know, it's been a while, we ask this about every 6 months or so, what is the best free-to-play game on the market right now? Let's take a look at Michael Coffey's question we just talked about earlier and give Michael some answers. What are the best free-to-play games on the market right now? What makes free-to-play worth playing? Why? Tell us a little bit about your favorites in the comments below. And while you're there, don't forget your weekly bombs. Dub bomb for something good, A bomb for something bad. Anything you want to vent about, or your just general question for the panel, go ahead and throw it down there. We'll put it on the show. Until next week, Q, where can everybody find you?
Hanging out on Twitter at Quitland.
Jason.
On Twitter at Winter Informal, streams at twitch.tv/JasonWinter, and maybe I'm going to have a special guest this weekend.
Oh, that could be interesting.
Maybe.
Could be interesting.
Maybe.
I'm Mike
Mike,
Byrne.
do you know anything about that?
I might be on Jason's stream. I'm Mike Byrne.
Wow, way to spoil it.
You can follow me right there on Twitter at magicman1. But more importantly, while you're there, follow at MMOBomb so we can tweet at you all the news, giveaways, interviews, articles, first look videos, and more. Until next week, gang, stay safe. We'll see you on the servers. Reroll that daily.